3 days passed. 3 days of chaos, fear, and desperate hope. The dandelion seed flew through space at maximum speed, trying to reach the nearest human station. Inside the ship, every room had become a hospital. Every crew member had become a nurse. Ensign Jiwoo had not slept in 4 days. Her eyes were red and her hands shook, but she refused to stop working. She moved from cub to cub, checking their vital signs, adjusting their medicine, holding their tiny paws when they cried. "You need to rest," said Counselor Yoonji, touching her shoulder gently. Yoonji was an older woman whose job was to care for the crew's mental health. Now she spent her time caring for everyone. "I can't," said Jiwoo. Her voice cracked. "Every time I close my eyes, I hear them crying. If I sleep and one of them dies, I'll never forgive myself." This was the feeling on the entire ship. Every human aboard had fallen in love with the cubs. It was impossible not to. The cubs were small and soft and helpless. They made tiny sounds when they were hungry. They purred when someone held them. They reached out with their little paws when they felt scared. Dr. Taiho worked without stopping in the medical bay. He had studied the disease called hollow wasting for 3 days straight. His notes covered every wall. His coffee had gone cold hours ago. "I think I understand it now," he told Captain Yuna when she came to check on him. "The disease attacks the cells that produce energy. The cubs are literally starving from the inside, even if they eat." Moriranu medicine tried to stop the disease directly. They failed because the disease adapts too quickly. "So there's no hope?" asked Yuna. "I didn't say that." Taiho's tired eyes showed a small light. Human medicine takes a different approach. Instead of fighting the disease, we could try to help the body fight it. We have something called stem cell therapy. We can teach human stem cells to produce the energy the cubs need. Will it work? I don't know. It's never been tried on aliens before. But it's the only chance they have. Yuna nodded. Do it. Meanwhile, the ship was running out of everything. Food, water, medicine, power. The dandelion seed was designed for a crew of 50 humans. Not 50 humans plus 200 sick alien babies. Chief Engineer Dong-Soo became a hero in those dark days. The big, gruff man who rarely smiled and never showed emotion turned into something unexpected. He built incubators from old engine parts. He created heating blankets from electrical wire. He fixed broken equipment with nothing but willpower and tape. One night, Yuna found him sitting alone in a storage room. He was holding a small golden cub against his chest. The cub was purring softly. "She wouldn't stop crying," said Dong-Soo. His voice was rough. "The only thing that calms her down is being held." Yuna sat down next to him. "You've been working harder than anyone. They're just babies, Captain." Dong-Soo looked at the cub in his arms. They didn't ask to be born. They didn't ask to get sick. They didn't ask to be thrown away like garbage. His jaw tightened. What kind of species abandons their own children? Yuna had no answer. Navigator Soo-jin worked day and night to find a faster route home. The normal path would take 2 weeks. The cubs didn't have 2 weeks. There's one option, she told the captain. The broken path. It's an unstable region of space. Ships have disappeared there. But if we make it through, we can reach the station in 5 days. How dangerous is it? Very. Maybe we all die. Soo-jin paused. But if we don't take it, the cubs definitely die. Yuna made the decision without hesitation. Take the broken path. The next 2 days were terrifying. The ship shook and screamed as it flew through twisted space. Alarms rang constantly. Crew members held onto walls and prayed, but they made it through. And still, despite everything the humans did, some cubs died. The first death came on the 4th day. A small silver cub with blue eyes. Jiwoo had named him Cloud because he was so light and soft. She had stayed with him for 6 hours, trying everything she knew. When he stopped breathing, She sat very still for a long moment. Then she began to cry. The crew held a small funeral. They wrapped Cloud's body in a white cloth and spoke words of love. Captain Yuna said that every life mattered, that Cloud had known kindness in his final days, that he had not died alone in the dark. 2 more cubs died that week. Each death hit the crew like a physical blow, but the others grew stronger. Doctor Taiho's treatment was working. Slowly, carefully, the human stem cells were teaching the cubs' bodies to fight. The change was small at first. A cub who couldn't open her eyes began to look around. A cub who couldn't eat began to drink milk. A cub who couldn't move began to wave his tiny tail. "It's working," whispered Taiho, staring at his data with tears in his eyes. "By all the stars, it's actually working." The cubs began to recognize the humans who cared for them. They would cry when their favorite person left and purr when they came back. They would curl up against warm human bodies and sleep peacefully for the first time in their short lives. Pilot Junho volunteered to fly ahead in a small shuttle to get more supplies. The journey was dangerous. He had to fly through an asteroid field and dock with a distant trading post. He was gone for 30 hours. When he returned with food, medicine, and blankets, the crew cheered like he had won a war. On the 7th day, something happened that changed everything. "Captain," said Hana, her voice tight, "we have a contact on sensors. Big ship, coming fast." Yuna ran to the bridge. On the screen, she saw a ship 3 times the size of the dandelion seed. It was beautiful and terrible, covered with weapons and armor. "It's Moriranu," said Hana. "A warship, the Silent Claw." Yuna's blood went cold. The Moriranu had found them. A message appeared on the screen. The words were translated into human language, but the meaning was clear. "Human vessel, you have stolen Moriranu children. Surrender them immediately, or be destroyed." Behind Yuna, she could hear the soft sounds of cubs crying in the cargo hold. She could hear her crew members whispering words of comfort. She stood straight and faced the screen. "Open a channel," she said. "I want to talk to whoever is in charge." The battle for the cubs was about to begin. The exploration vessel Dandelion Seed moved slowly through the darkness of space. It was the year 2847, and humanity had spread far beyond Earth. They had built colonies on distant worlds and made contact with dozens of alien species. Some of those species welcomed humans. Others feared them. Most simply ignored them. Captain Yuna stood on the bridge of her ship, watching the stars through the main window. She was a woman of 43 years, with gray streaks in her black hair and calm eyes that had seen many strange things. She had been exploring space for 20 years, and she thought nothing could surprise her anymore. She was wrong. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Navigator Sujin from her station. She was a young woman with quick hands and a sharp mind. "There's a moon ahead. It's not on any of our maps." Yuna walked over to look at the data. The moon was small and gray, orbiting a gas giant in the Vega system. According to all records, this moon was dead. No air, no water, no life. But the sensors told a different story. "I'm detecting life signs," said Dr. Taiho, the ship's xenobiologist. He was a thin man with gentle hands and thick glasses. He spent most of his time studying alien plants and animals. Faint, but definitely alive. Approximately 200 individual readings. They're underground. Yuna felt her heart beat faster. Unknown life on an unmapped moon. This was why she had become an explorer. "Prepare a landing party," she said. 1 hour later, Yuna stood on the surface of the moon with Dr. Taiho and Lieutenant Hana, her head of security. Hana was a strong woman who carried a weapon at all times and trusted no one. She scanned the rocky ground with suspicious eyes. "The life signs are coming from that direction," said Dr. Taiho. pointing toward a dark crack in the ground. Some kind of cave system. They climbed down into the darkness. Their flashlights cut through the black air. The cave walls were smooth as if something had carved them long ago. After walking for 10 minutes, they found a door. It was made of metal and covered with strange writing. Hannah pushed it open carefully. What they found inside made all three of them stop breathing. The room was large and filled with small beds. On each bed lay a creature about the size of a human baby. They looked like cats, but not quite. They had soft fur in colors of silver and gold. They had large ears and long tails. Their eyes, when open, were bright green or deep blue. But most of those eyes were closed. The creatures were sick, dying. "By all the stars," whispered Dr. Taiho. He rushed to the nearest bed and scanned one of the creatures with his medical device. "They're cubs, children, and they're suffering from severe malnutrition and some kind of disease." Yuna counted quickly. There were close to 200 of them. 200 dying children, abandoned in the dark. "I know what they are," said Hana quietly. Her voice was strange. "They're Moriranu. I've seen pictures." Yuna knew the name. The Moriranu were a proud and powerful species. They controlled dozens of star systems and had technology far beyond human understanding. They also hated humans. They called humans noisy monkeys and refused all attempts at friendship. "What are Moriranu children doing here?" asked Dr. Taiho. "Alone? Where are the adults?" Hannah shook her head. "I don't know. But look at this place. It hasn't been visited in weeks, maybe months. Someone left them here to die." Yuna felt something hot rise in her chest. It was anger. She had seen many terrible things in space, but nothing like this. Children, left alone in the dark, slowly dying. She made her decision in less than a second. "We're taking them," she said. Hannah's eyes went wide. "Captain, these are Moriranu. If we take their children, they might see it as an act of war. They could destroy our entire fleet. And if we leave them, they die," said Yuna. Her voice was hard as steel. "I will not leave children to die. I don't care what species they are." Dr. Taiho was already working. He had found a cub that was barely breathing and was giving it water through a small tube. "We need to move fast. Some of them won't last another day." They called for help from the ship. For the next 6 hours, the entire crew of the Dandelion Seed worked without rest. They carried the cubs out of the cave one by one, wrapped in blankets, held against warm human bodies. The cubs were so weak. Some of them cried softly, making sounds like tiny bells. Others were too sick to make any sound at all. Ensign Jiwoo, the ship's young medic, set up emergency stations in the cargo hold. She had never treated aliens before, but she worked as if her own children were dying. Chief Engineer Dong-soo, a big man with rough hands, built heating units from spare parts to keep the cubs warm. By midnight, all 200 cubs were aboard the Dandelion Seed. Captain Yuna walked through the cargo hold, looking at the small bodies lying in their makeshift beds. Her crew moved among them like ghosts, checking temperatures, giving medicine, whispering soft words. Dr. Taiho appeared at her side. His face was gray with exhaustion. "I've identified the disease," he said. "It's called hollow wasting. It's a Moriranu illness. It attacks their bodies from the inside. In Moriranu medical texts, it's listed as incurable. Is there anything we can do?" "I have some ideas. Human medicine works differently from Moriranu medicine. We might find something they missed." He paused. "But Captain, even with treatment, some of them will die. We don't have enough resources. We don't have the right equipment. We're trying to do the impossible." Yuna looked at a nearby cub. It was silver-furred with tiny pink ears. Its chest rose and fell slowly, each breath a small victory. Then we'll do the impossible, she said. At that moment, alarm rang through the ship. Navigator Sujin's voice came over the speakers. Captain to the bridge. We're receiving a signal from the moon. Some kind of distress beacon just activated. Yuna ran to the bridge. On the screen, she could see the beacon's message. It was in the Moriranu language, but the translation was clear. Colony location compromised. Outsiders have found the children. Someone knew they were here. Someone was coming. And Yuna had no idea if they were coming to help or to destroy. The face that appeared on the screen was not human. It was covered in short gray fur, with pointed ears and golden eyes that showed no warmth. This was Admiral Keisho, commander of the Moriranu warship Silent Claw. Human captain, he said. His voice was cold like winter wind. You have committed a crime against the Moriranu people. You have taken our young without permission. You will return them now. Captain Yuna stood firm. Her crew watched her with worried eyes. Everyone knew that one wrong word could mean death for all of them. Admiral, she said calmly, we did not steal your children. We found them dying in an abandoned cave. We saved their lives. Saved? The Admiral's golden eyes narrowed. You took what was not yours. What happens to Moriranu children is Moriranu business. It is not for humans to decide. They were dying, said Yuna. They had no food, no water, no medicine. They were left alone in the dark. We could not walk away. Then you are fools. Admiral Keisho leaned forward. The cubs were placed there for a reason. They carried a disease that cannot be cured. In Moriranu culture, the sick are given peace. They are allowed to fade with dignity. Your interference has only brought them more suffering. Yuna felt anger burn in her chest, but she kept her voice steady. With respect, Admiral, your doctor said the disease couldn't be cured. But our doctor found a treatment. The cubs are getting better. Many will survive. For a moment, something flickered in the Admiral's eyes. Surprise, perhaps. Or disbelief. But it disappeared quickly. It does not matter, he said. The cubs belong to us. You will transfer them to our ship within 1 hour, or we will take them by force. I cannot do that. The bridge went silent. Lieutenant Hana closed her eyes. She knew what those words meant. You refuse? Said Admiral Keisho. You would die for alien children? Children that are not your own? The cubs are too weak to survive a transfer, said Yuna. If we move them now, many will die. I will not kill children to follow your orders. Then you will die with them. The screen went dark. Hannah checked her sensors and cursed softly. They're powering weapons. We have maybe 20 minutes before they're ready to fire. Yuna turned to her crew. Their faces were pale with fear, but none of them spoke of surrender. None of them suggested giving up the cubs. We're not going to win a fight against that ship, said Yuna. We need another way. Communications Officer Boyang raised her hand. She was a quiet woman who studied alien languages and cultures. She rarely spoke in meetings, but now her eyes were bright with an idea. Captain, I've been monitoring their communications. There's someone else on that ship. Someone called Elder Voshi. She's very old, very respected. I think she's the one who ordered the cubs to be abandoned. Why does that help us? Because Moriranu culture values truth above all things. They believe in facing reality, no matter how painful. Moyang took a deep breath. What if we showed them the truth? What if we let them see what we've been doing? Yuna understood at once. You want to broadcast our nursery to their ship. Yes, let them see their children. Let them see how we've cared for them. Let them judge us after they've seen the truth. It was a risk. It might make the Moriranu angrier. It might do nothing at all. But it was the only chance they had. Do it, said Yuna. 10 minutes later, the screens on the silent claw showed something unexpected. They showed a cargo hold filled with small beds. They showed Moriranu cubs wrapped in warm blankets. They showed human hands holding tiny paws. They showed human voices singing soft songs. They showed Ensign Jiwoo, exhausted and red-eyed, feeding a cub with a tiny bottle. They showed Chief Engineer Dong-soo building a toy from spare parts to make a cub smile. They showed Dr. Taiho crying when a cub opened its eyes for the first time. They showed love. Pure, simple, impossible love. On the bridge of the Silent Claw, Admiral Keisho watched in silence. His face showed nothing. But beside him stood Elder Voshi. She was ancient, her fur turned white with age, her body bent with years. She had seen many things in her long life. She had made many hard decisions. Now she watched humans care for Moriranu children, and her old heart felt something it had not felt in decades. "Stop," she said softly. Admiral Keisho turned to her. "Elder? Stop the attack. I will speak with the human captain myself." Minutes later, Elder Voshi's face appeared on Yuna's screen. Her eyes were deep and old and filled with pain. "Human," she said, "I am the one who ordered those cubs to be left in the cave. I am the one who decided they should die." Yuna said nothing. She waited. "You must understand," continued the elder. "Hollow wasting has killed millions of our people. We have tried everything. Nothing works. When a child is diagnosed, there is no hope. Only suffering." Her voice cracked. "We believed it was kinder to let them fade peacefully than to fight a battle that cannot be won." "With respect, Elder," said Yuna, "how do you know a battle cannot be won if you stop fighting?" The old Moriranu was silent for a long moment. "Our doctors are the best in the galaxy. They said there was no cure. Your doctors looked for a way to kill the disease. My doctor looked for a way to help the body survive it. Sometimes, the answer isn't in fighting harder. It's in fighting differently." Elder Voshi closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were wet with tears. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you help them? They are not your children. They are not your species. We have treated humans poorly for generations. Why would you sacrifice so much for us?" Captain Yuna thought about the question carefully. It was the most important question anyone had ever asked her. "Because they were dying," she said simply. "Because they were alone. Because we could help." She paused. "We didn't think about politics or history or what might happen next. We just saw children who needed us. That was enough." Elder Voshi was quiet for a long time. Then, slowly, she bowed her head. "I have lived for 200 years, she said. "I thought I understood the universe. I thought I knew what was possible and what was not." She looked at Yuna with new eyes. "I was wrong. About many things." She turned to Admiral Keisho. "Stand down all weapons. We will not attack this ship. We will not take the cubs." She turned back to Yuna. "Instead, we will help you. Tell us what you need. Medicine, supplies, protection. You will have it all." Yuna felt tears running down her face. Behind her, her crew began to cheer. On the screen, Elder Voshi asked one final question. "The treatment your doctor created, can it truly cure hollow wasting?" Yuna smiled. "Come aboard and see for yourself." For the first time in history, Moriranu and humans would work together. And it all started with 200 dying children who refused to give up. The two ships flew side by side through the darkness of space. One human, one Moriranu. Days ago, they had been enemies ready to destroy each other. Now they were something new, something that had never existed before. A Moriranu shuttle docked with the dandelion seed. When the doors opened, Dr. Nari stepped through. She was a Moriranu physician, tall and elegant, with silver fur and sharp green eyes. Those eyes were full of doubt. I am here to observe your treatment, she said coldly. Elder Voshi believes you have found a cure. I do not. Hollow wasting has killed my people for centuries. I do not believe humans can solve what Moriranu could not. Dr. Taiho bowed politely. He was too tired to be offended. Please, follow me. I'll show you everything. He led her through the ship to the cargo hold. Dr. Nari stopped at the door. Her sharp eyes went wide. The room was full of cubs. But they were not the dying creatures she had expected. Many of them were sitting up. Some were eating. A few were even playing, batting at toys with their tiny paws. This is impossible, she whispered. It's not impossible, said Taiho gently. It's just different. He explained his treatment. He showed her the data. He walked her through every step, every calculation, every adjustment. Dr. Nari listened in silence. Her face showed nothing, but her hands trembled slightly. You did not try to kill the disease, she said slowly. You tried to strengthen the body. Exactly. Human medicine learned long ago that sometimes you can't beat the enemy directly. Sometimes you have to help the patient outlast it. The disease is still there, but the cubs' bodies are now strong enough to survive it. This goes against everything we were taught. I know. But does it work? Dr. Nari looked at the cubs. A small golden one had walked up to her and was rubbing against her leg, purring softly. She looked down at it with an expression of wonder. Yes, she said quietly. It works. From that moment, everything changed. Dr. Nari stopped being an observer and became a partner. She worked alongside Dr. Taiho day and night, combining Moriranu knowledge with human creativity. The Moriranu understood their own biology better than any human could. They knew exactly how hollow wasting attacked the body, which cells it targeted, how it spread. Dr. Nari shared all of this information freely. Taiho took that knowledge and applied human methods. Stem cell therapy, immune system support, physical therapy, emotional care. This is strange to me, said Dr. Nari one evening. They were sitting in a medical bay, surrounded by sleeping cubs. You spend so much time on emotional care. You talk to them. You hold them. You sing to them. How does this help their bodies heal? Taiho smiled. In human medicine, we've learned that the mind and body are connected. A patient who feels loved and safe heals faster than one who feels alone and afraid. It's not magic. It's science. Stress hormones slow down healing. Happiness hormones speed it up. Dr. Nari thought about this for a long time. We never considered this. When Moriranu is sick, we focus only on the disease. We give them medicine and leave them to rest. We do not. She struggled for the word. We do not cuddle them. Maybe that's something we can teach each other, said Taiho. The work was hard. The days were long. But slowly, wonderfully, the cubs got better. Pilot Junho made supply runs every few days. He flew through dangerous space, docked with distant stations, and returned with everything the doctors needed. Each time he came back, he went straight to the nursery to check on a tiny silver cub he had named Star. She was the first one I held, he told Dr. Nari. When we found them in the cave, she was almost dead. I carried her out myself. I promised her I would keep her safe. Dr. Nari watched him pick up the cub and hold her gently. Star purred and snuggled against his chest. She knows you, said Dr. Nari. There was something new in her voice. Something soft. She feels safe with you. Is that strange? That she would bond with a human? It is unusual. Cubs normally bond only with their birth parents. Dr. Nari tilted her head. But these cubs have never known their birth parents. They only know you. All of you. This was something no one had expected. The cubs were imprinting on the humans. They saw Ensign Jiwoo as their mother. They saw Chief Engineer Dong Su as their protector. They saw Captain Yuna as their leader. "What will happen when we return them to the Moriranu?" asked Counselor Yunji. She was worried. "They've bonded with us. If we separate them, it might hurt them." "We will deal with that problem later," said Captain Yuna. "First, we make sure they survive." 3 weeks passed. The cure was perfected. The treatment was documented. Every cub received the medicine they needed. 187 cubs survived. 13 had died, despite everything. The crew mourned each one. They held funerals and spoke words of love. They remembered names and faces and tiny purring sounds, but 187 lived. 187 cubs who had been left to die in a dark cave now ran and played and laughed in the cargo hold of a human ship. Elder Voshi came aboard to see them. She walked slowly through the nursery, tears streaming down her old face. Cubs ran up to her, curious about this stranger. Some of them tried to climb her legs. "We left them to die," she said to Captain Yuna. "We thought we were being kind. We thought death was better than suffering." She picked up a golden cub and held it close. "We were wrong. We were so wrong." "You made a decision based on what you knew," said Yuna. "Now you know more." "Yes." Elder Voshi looked at the human captain with deep respect. "Now we know more. Because of you." She made a formal request. She wanted the cure shared with all Moriranu worlds. Hollow wasting had killed millions over the centuries. Now, finally, it could be stopped. "Of course," said Dr. Taiho. "The cure belongs to everyone." Dr. Nari would carry the treatment back to Moriranu space. She would teach other doctors. She would save other children. But before she left, she found Dr. Taiho in the medical bay one last time. "I came here believing humans were primitive," she said. "I thought you were foolish and emotional. I thought your medicine was backward." She bowed her head. "I was wrong about all of it." "You aren't completely wrong," said Taiho with a tired smile. "We are emotional. Very emotional. But maybe that's not always a bad thing." "No," said Dr. Nari. "Maybe it's not." She reached out and touched his hand gently. It was a gesture of friendship that would have been unthinkable weeks ago. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." When the Moriranu shuttle finally departed, the entire crew of the Dandelion Seed gathered to watch. The cubs watched too, pressing their faces against the windows. They had survived the impossible. They had found a cure that thousands of years of Moriranu medicine had missed. They had turned enemies into friends. But the story was not over yet. A message came from the Galactic Council, the highest authority in known space. "The rulers of 100 species, human vessel Dandelion Seed, you are ordered to appear before the Council. You are accused of violating the Prime Directive of non-interference. You will answer for your crimes." Captain Yuna read the message with a heavy heart. Saving the cubs had been the right thing to do. She knew it in her soul, but now she would have to convince the entire galaxy. The Galactic Council chamber was the largest room Captain Yuna had ever seen. It was built on a space station at the center of known space, designed to hold representatives from 100 different species. Strange creatures of all shapes and sizes sat in floating platforms around a central stage. Yuna stood on that stage alone. Beside her stood Ambassador Mizo, the human representative to the council. Mizo was a small woman with short hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had spent her whole life fighting for humanity's place in the galaxy. Today might be her hardest fight yet. High Arbiter Yellen floated down from her platform. She was a being of pure energy, glowing blue and gold, with no solid form. She was over 1,000 years old and had led the council for centuries. "Captain Yuna of the human vessel Dandelion Seed," she said. Her voice echoed through the chamber. "You stand accused of violating the Prime Directive of non-interference. You entered Moriranu space without permission. You took Moriranu children without consent. You performed medical experiments on alien subjects. How do you answer these charges?" Yuna took a deep breath. "I answer that I saved lives." Whispers rippled through the chamber. The Arbiter raised a glowing hand for silence. "The Prime Directive exists for a reason," she said. "Every species has the right to determine its own fate. When one species interferes with another, the results are often catastrophic. Wars have started. Civilizations have fallen. The directive protects us all from good intentions gone wrong." A platform floated forward. On it stood a tall, insect-like creature with clicking jaws. Yuna recognized the species. They were called Devorn, and they were famous for following rules without question. The humans acted without authority, clicked the Devorn representative. They made decisions that were not theirs to make. They assumed they knew better than the Moriranu how to handle Moriranu children. This is arrogance. This is dangerous. They must be punished. More species spoke against the humans. Some were angry. Some were afraid. The general feeling was clear. Humans were young and reckless. They didn't understand how things worked. They needed to be taught a lesson. Ambassador Mizo stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but carried across the entire chamber. "May I speak?" The Arbiter nodded. "You talk about the Prime Directive as if it were a sacred law," said Mizo. "But let me ask you something. What is the purpose of the directive? Is it to protect species from each other? Or is it to give powerful species an excuse to ignore suffering?" The chamber went silent. When Captain Yuna found those children, they were dying. Not in some natural way. Not from some unavoidable tragedy. They were abandoned. Left alone in a cave to starve and suffer. That was not destiny. That was a choice. A choice made by people who had given up. She turned to face the gathered species. Non-interference sounds noble. It sounds respectful. But when a child is dying in front of you, when you have the power to help, when all it takes is reaching out your hand, is non-interference really the right choice? Or is it just the easy choice? The Devorn representative clicked angrily. "You cannot judge Moriranu culture. Their ways are their own. I'm not judging their culture. I'm questioning whether any culture should be allowed to leave children to die when help is available." Mizo's eyes were hard. The Prime Directive was created to prevent powerful species from controlling weaker ones. But the Moriranu weren't weak. They weren't being conquered or controlled. They simply abandoned their sick children because they believed nothing could be done. We showed them they were wrong. High Arbiter Yellen floated closer. "You speak of good results. But good results do not always justify dangerous methods. What if your interference had made things worse? What if the cubs had died anyway, and the Moriranu had gone to war? Then we would have faced those consequences," said Yuna, speaking for the first time in minutes. "We didn't help those children because we calculated the odds. We didn't run simulations or consult lawyers. We helped them because they were dying and we could do something about it. If that's a crime, then I'm guilty. I would do it again. Every single time." The chamber was silent. Many species looked uncomfortable. A few looked thoughtful. Then a platform floated forward that no one expected. It was the Moriranu delegation. At its center stood Elder Voshi, ancient and dignified, with Admiral Kisho at her side. "May the Moriranu speak?" asked Elder Voshi. The Arbiter nodded. Elder Voshi turned to face the entire council. Her voice was old but strong. "I am the one who ordered those cubs to be left in the cave. I made that decision because I believed they could not be saved. I believed I was showing mercy." She paused. "I was wrong." Whispers filled the chamber. The Moriranu never admitted fault. It was against their culture. The humans did not conquer us. They did not control us. They simply refused to let our children die. They worked without sleep. They shared their food. They cried when cubs died and celebrated when cubs recovered. Elder Voshi's voice trembled. They showed us something we had forgotten. Hope. Stubborn, irrational hope. She turned to face the Arbiter directly. You ask if the humans should be punished for saving Moriranu lives. I say no. I say they should be honored. And I say this. If this council rules against them, the Moriranu will stand with humanity, whatever the consequences. Admiral Kisho stepped forward. Our fleet stands ready. We will not allow humanity to be punished for saving our children. The chamber exploded with noise. Species shouted at each other. Platforms floated in chaotic patterns. No one had expected this. High Arbiter Yellen raised both hands, and the chamber fell silent. This is unprecedented, she said. A species that was wronged, choosing to defend the wrongdoers. A species that hates humans standing beside them. She looked at Yuna with new eyes. Perhaps there is something to learn here. The council debated for 3 days. In the end, they reached a decision that would change the galaxy forever. The Prime Directive would be modified. Non-interference would no longer apply when children's lives were at immediate risk. A new principle would be added. The Yuna Principle. Named after a human captain who refused to let alien children die. When the announcement was made, Captain Yuna stood with her crew. All of them were crying. Ensign Jiwoo, Chief Engineer Dongsu, Navigator Sujin, Pilot Junho, all of them. The cubs were there too, healthy and playful. They ran around the humans' feet, purring and playing. Elder Voshi approached Yuna. There is one more matter, she said. The cubs have bonded with your crew. They see you as family. We have discussed this among our people. Any cub who wishes to stay with the humans may do so. Yuna looked at the cubs. Many of them were watching her, their big eyes full of trust. And any Moriranu families who want to raise them? They may apply. The cubs will choose. Elder Voshi smiled. That is something else we learn from humans. Sometimes, choice matters more than tradition. In the end, more than half the cubs chose to stay with the crew of the Dandelion Seed. They would travel the stars together. Human and Moriranu, a strange new family born from tragedy and hope. Months later, Captain Yuna sat in her quarters. A small golden cub was curled in her lap, sleeping peacefully. Her name was Haru, which meant spring. She had been one of the sickest cubs, barely alive when they found her. Now she was healthy and happy and loved. Yuna opened her log and began to record. Captain's log. We set out to explore the unknown. We found something we never expected. Not a new planet, not a new species, but a new understanding of who we are, of what we're capable of why we matter. She looked at Haru sleeping in her lap. They called us reckless, sentimental, dangerously empathetic. Perhaps they were right. But when we found those children dying in the dark, we didn't think about politics or consequences. We just reached out our hands. That's what humans do. She smiled and touched Haru's soft fur. That's what we'll always do. The Dandelion Seed flew on through the stars, carrying its strange crew toward new adventures. Behind it, 100 species had learned something about humanity. Humans weren't the strongest species in the galaxy. They weren't the smartest or the oldest or the most advanced. But when children were dying in the dark, humans were the ones who came to help. And that made all the difference.